There's a strange, uncomfortable truth about American modern politics. The truth that both left and right, and those who are in the center, rarely want to acknowledge. The truth is that anti-Semitism has come back. It has come back as the most important element, the glue that holds together various ideologies propelling the right and left and preventing those right and left ideologies from collapsing under their own weight. First, let's take a look at the white Christian nationalism as represented, for example, by Nick Fuentes, a young online Führer of the growing army of disaffected young men. We are told that white nationalism is about identity, about saving Western civilization, or about border security. But none of these ideological strands hold the movement together. None of them explains the fanaticism and intensity of the devotion to their leader by its followers. What really holds these seemingly new slogans up in this is the same old story that we heard before. Jews are the problem. White Christian nationalism needs Jews as its enemies, as it always has. Without Jews as a universal villain, its ideology is incoherent. Think about it. These mostly white young men, often lonely, angry, feeling like real losers who are outshined even by women of their own age in the areas of educational and professional achievements. They have grown up with the idea that they are rightful heirs of American and Western greatness, yet they see themselves as failures, failing economically, socially, even romantically. They look at modern life and feel themselves to be out of place, living lives that have no meaning. So they go searching for someone to blame, not themselves naturally, never themselves, not their culture, not their behavior, not their choices. No, the blame must fall on a single, mysterious, invisible force that manipulates everything, and they find it, just like their grandparents and their great grandparents found. It's the Jews. It is Soros, not Musk, not Elon Musk, but Soros, despite the fact that Musk is 80 times richer than Soros. And it does not matter whether the Jew is a communist, capitalist, powerful banker, rootless wanderer, cosmopolitan, globalist, tribal nationalist, bearded Orthodox, or secular anti-religious Jew. It never matters. The content is irrelevant. The target is the same, as is the explanation. That is why man like Nick Fuentes, a man born in LaGrange Park, Illinois, where I used to live for many years, a man who, by his own racist definition, himself is not really white, given his half-Mexican father and Spanish last name. A man like Nick Fuentes, who openly and proudly declares himself to be admirer of Hitler and Stalin, can still become the leader of white Christian nationalism. The word Christian allows him to fill that spot because the word means the movement which is not built on biology. It's built on the psychological need for permanent enemy. Because of it, Fuentes is not weird, but can act as the clearest expression of the movement regardless of his racial profile. This is also the reason why white Christian nationalists are turning against Trump today, not because Trump changed, but because Trump did not give them, at least not yet, the one thing they crave more than anything else: a world in which Jews are removed from the center of American life and can be openly vilified. The moment Trump stands with Israel, they call him traitor. The moment he refuses to release the so-called Epstein files, they call him corrupt. The moment he does not plunge headfirst into their anti-Semitic fantasies, they shun him. Because of them, anti-Semitism is not just a feature of their worldview, it is the foundational element of it. Now, let's look to the left. The far left of today is ideologically brown, not because of the color of the skin of its members, but because its ideology is the result of the union, of mixture, of Marxist red and Islamist green. Whatever you call them, they don't care. They will tell you with confidence the opposite of the white nationalists. They will tell you that their ideology is social justice, anti-colonialism, anti-capitalism, anti-racism, anti-imperialism. But the same psychological mechanism appears with them like with the far rightists. They too need a world with singular villain. They too lack the ability to think about the world in complex terms. They too need a scapegoat. And who appears there again? The Jew. The only thing now is that they start not with individuals, but with the Jewish state, which the Jews created for self-defense, or from their point of view, for aggression against poor Palestinians. Like it was with Lenin, Trotsky, Stalin, Brezhnev, and others, the Jew is disguised as Zionist, settler, colonialist, occupier, the oppressor. In the 21st century, the Jew became also white, to the point that he is now in control of both America and the Middle East. The labels change, the content changes, but the target, the sick obsession, remains the same. Unlike the right-wing anti-Semitism, which wears the costume of racial hierarchy, the left-wing anti-Semitism wears the costume of pretend moral justice. But what they bring to the world is the same: death on massive scale and destruction, which in today's nuclear world could mean total annihilation of humanity. The white Christian nationalist imagines Jews replacing white people. The leftists, who became incredibly uncomfortable with Jews after the Soviet Union turned against Israel in late 40s, early 50s, and the United States later on made Soviet Jews into a club to use against that communist dictatorship. The leftist today, the progressive today, following the Soviet communists' decision to see Jews as oppressors, and not only Soviet communists, but the entire United Nations in 1977, as oppressors of the indigenous people, and more recently, also climate destroyers. Both white Christian nationalists and brown neo-fascist left. I call them neo-fascists because they're fundamentally set against liberal democracy. They imagine Jews controlling the world behind the scenes. Both describe Jews as elites. Both describe Jews as outsiders. Both describe Jews as not really part of us. And when pushed, both admit the same thing. Everything would be better if the Jews weren't where they are, or not at all. This desire, explicitly stated on the right, implicitly on the left, although Karl Marx was quite explicit in imagining the future beautiful world as the world where there are no Jews. This desire is the true foundation of their ideologies. And our great tragedy today is America experiencing the convergence of these two extremes, the white Christian nationalism and newly created brown neo-fascism. In the comments under Fuentes' articles, in the streets during pro-Hamas protest, in social media ecosystems where young men and women search for meaning, the same fantasy appears. The fantasy that the real solution to today's world's problem has been found. The Jews are the obstacle to fulfillment of their highest and most noble ideals, be those ideals of white Christian America or progressive ideals of post-colonial liberation, whatever that means. Like before, so today, we, the Jews, are caught in the middle because we symbolize something that unsettles the evil of this world. To the largely Catholic-led white Christian nationalists, we represent modernity, intellectualism, cosmopolitanism, the mixing of identities, and even the challenge to racial purity. To the far left, anti-Zionist, we represent Western success, democratic institutions, national revival, and the refusal to accept victimhood as an identity. In both cases, the Jews represent a historic slap in the face to both of them. The very existence of the Jewish people is the greatest offense to both of them. Something that New Philistines, as the Palestinians call themselves, represent better than anyone else. In both cases, the syphilis of the anti-Semitism is the common element that binds these minions and their worldview. Without hatred of Jews, their entire understanding of history collapses. Let me be very blunt. A white supremacist movement without anti-Semitism has no explanation for why whites are losing their cultural dominance. A radical left progressive movement without anti-Semitism has no explanation for why their Soviet Union collapsed, and no oppressed people of the world achieved socialist utopia after the horrifically bloody revolutions that they have staged. We, the Jews, are their imagined explanation. We're the excuse for their failures. And that is why these revolutionaries and counter-revolutionaries need us preferably dead. Because of it, we cannot fight white Christian nationalism by pretending it is only racism. We cannot fight leftist anti-Semitism by pretending it is only about policy disagreements. How can we fight? By not being silent. Not silent, not embarrassed, not apologizing for our Jewishness, not hiding our love for the land of Israel and the Jewish state, not bending ourselves into pretzels to appease the haters. I know that that is not easy, and that you will experience even more loneliness as a result, a little bit. But it will be the loneliness of Zion. By not being silent and by speaking a truth, we often hesitate to say out loud because it sounds too ancient, too uncompromising for modern years. but we must state it clearly. The Jewish people are still on the march toward Zion. But that lonely Zionist march is humanity's most important, final, and only hope for not committing mass suicide. Jews on the march to Zion not because we seek power or dominance, but because Zion is the last hope for nuclear armed humanity. It is the last hope that peace may come, peace that is built on holiness, justice, and moral responsibility. Without Zionism, the world tries to build peace on a shifting sand, if at all. Long before modern politics, the Torah told us, behold, look, before you a people that dwells alone. That was not a curse. It was an honest description of a people carrying a torch of universal morality, though it is often against the current. Abraham walked away from everything familiar. Moses led a slave nation into a desert. The prophets warned kings who did not want to hear their warnings and persecuted them. Prophets were very lonely people. The Jewish road has always been narrow, steep, and solitary, not because we reject the world, but because following God, we love it more than anything and are willing to suffer for it. Zionism is not a political campaign. It is not just about borders and governments. It is the ancient human dream that there exists one place where morality, justice, and God's presence stand above kings, empires, or democratically elected leaders. The journey to Zion did not end in 1948 or even 67. It did not stop because there is a mosque today where the temple once stood and will stand again one day. The Jewish march continues because the mission continues to restore a moral center to a world that lacks compass. Human beings are easily seduced by idols, by power, money, beautiful ideologies promising utopias. But Jews, not all, but always at least some, have had the nerve to say, no, those things are not God. That message has never won popularity for Jews, other than with tiny minorities, and only for a short period of time. After that, those tiny minorities started competing with Jews, making our lives even more difficult, if not impossible, than those who did not agree with us at all. Jewish distinctiveness makes people uneasy. It reminds them that morality is not optional, that conscience does not retire, that life has meaning and not necessarily what people imagine. So the world pushes back. Why can't you be like everyone else? But if Jews become like everyone else, Zion disappears, and with it, the hope for peace. Zion, Jerusalem, Temple Mount. It is not just a contested piece of real estate. Zion is the idea that peace begins when humanity bows to something higher than its own ego. The temple built by King Solomon was built not to rule over nations. It was built to elevate them. Yes, The Temple Mount is politically explosive issue today, but the Jewish longing for it is not a plan for conquest. It is longing for restoration of a worldview where justice is real and God indeed does matter. If Jews fear our own holiness, if we shrink from our mission, the world loses the one spiritual compass that has consistently survived empires and ideologies. Look around. Israel stands today isolated. Jews are attacked from both right and left. Anti-Semitic mobs shout at universities and outside synagogues. Some Jews react with fear. Maybe we should tone it down. Maybe it is Netanyahu's fault. Maybe we should hide. But history teaches the opposite. When we, the Jews, try to blend in, the world becomes even more suspicious of us. When we stand firm, however, the world has no other option but to confront the moral challenge we represent. To stand alone is not failure. To stand alone is the cost of leadership, is the price we pay for being Jews. Our task today is not to rebuild the temple physically. That will come in its own time in the future. Our task today is to rebuild the idea behind it, that morality is not optional, that justice flows from the Creator, that humans are accountable to something higher than their desires. That is what the Jewish people bring to this world, not only today, but always. If we teach this with confidence, if we live it honestly, then someday the nations will be ready for what Isaiah envisioned when he said on behalf of God, "My house shall be a house of prayer for all nations." The statement may sound to some of you as a product of some hallucination, but not to me. Zion is not an abstraction. It is the center of Jewish existence that has been with us for our entire history. Zion gives us a reason to live, regardless where we are. Why am I talking about it? Because we Jews are rapidly losing friends, and there's no guarantee that even America, however friendly to us today, will remain our friend tomorrow. America has been a powerful friend of Israel, often indispensable. But so was ancient Rome, which was also a great friend to Judea at one time, before it turned sour and became our greatest enemy and our destroyer. That possibility of a repeat must sober us, especially because all signs are there that America is moving rapidly in that direction. The movement which we don't control. What we do control is our attachment to Zion, to God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that Zion represents. Zion is more than a place on a map. It is the central element of our Jewish civilization, and enemies of our people know it too. Zion is the meaning of the biblical story of the sacrifice of Isaac, something that we should consider. So yes, the path of Zion is lonely, but it is loneliness with purpose. The world today is adrift. Violence is spreading. Ideologies are collapsing. Moral foundations are cracking. But through all of this, there remains one tiny nation walking steadily toward the hill in Jerusalem, carrying a message older than any empire, stronger than any ideology. Without Zion, there is no peace. Without this moral center, Zion, humanity is ungovernable. And without the Jewish people staying true to our mission, the world will not find its direction, will not have compass. So do not fear the loneliness of Zion. Embrace it. It is the role we were given. It is the role our ancestors have accepted. And the world needs it now very badly again.